Bring it down.
We are live streaming.
Okay, go ahead and turn it on too. There you go.
Oh, there's the on button.
Yeah, you sound good. Noise.
Yeah,
Yeah, so if it's too quiet or too loud, or you want to adjust it as we're going along, that sort of thing, you can do so on the number 2.
it's a little bit loud, but
Right here.
Turn it.
That's great. I know I'm not talking to the mic, so you can't hear me.
Yeah, that's true. Because these guys headphones also can't hear anything.
someone's got to be the testing for this.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. How do you sound? How do you sound? This
Right.
is usually about how I'm talking. So
Right there.
okay, cool.
Go ahead and grab that and just like you own it. Don't be scared.
You'd think this would
Move it
turn
over.
just a
Alright,
little
we're
bit.
gonna scoot close to you, Kurt. We're gonna get together.
There we go. Cool.
This guy's like, my left hand's moving to your thigh. Don't
My left
panic.
hand's moving to your thigh, Kurt.
Hey, stop touching our guests that way, Scott. Oh, I know it's mutual. Well, that's always nice.
You got a cable right there.
Better?
Yeah.
You guys got your volume right? 3, 2.
Yeah.
I'm 1.
Yeah, are you one?
I'm a 1.
You are a
Can you hear me?
one.
Do I sound sexy?
You sound like a 1.
Okay, I'm speaking. Can everybody hear me?
All right, let's get you up there a little bit. I think we're good. Jeff, are you good?
We are good.
We are good. Oh, God, Jeff almost just bit it right there. Are you okay?
Yeah.
All right.
A little embarrassed.
Yeah.
Aw, just a little embarrassed. How cute.
Well, yeah, because he almost bit it like
I
really
missed it.
bad.
Didn't see it.
Over.
Oh yeah, he almost like knocked over all of his stuff. That would have been a tragedy. That would have been at least on the live stream. All right, are you ready? Are you?
Yeah, I'm adjusting this beautiful purple cord you have here. I like it.
Is that purple?
Looks purple to me.
Magenta or whatever. I don't know.
No, I don't think that's magenta. Purple.
I don't
Wow,
know. I
wow.
don't know
You
my
way
color.
to
Blue.
just make fun. Just tell him no, he's wrong. Wow, adjusted at least.
Well, I
fucking-
can't.
At least pretend. Oh
Okay.
yeah, that's a little bit magenta. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Who said that?
All right, let's get this started.
I'm hesitating to own that one.
Welcome to the Grit City Podcast. I am Justin.
I'm Scott.
I'm Jeff.
Nice. And with us today, we've got Nathan and Kirk from the BFRO, which is the Bigfoot Field Research Organization. How you guys doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Doing pretty good.
Nice. And we'll get to you guys in a second. Just wanted to introduce you so you can intersperse whenever you want to and talk about stuff. But seriously, thank you everyone for listening to the Grit City Podcast. If you're listening to us, you know that you can find us at gritcitypodcast.com and all of our social media and all of those fun different things, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Facebook, all of that stuff is just readily available right on your smartphones right now at this point, right?
Yeah, we're all over the internets.
Yeah,
all of them.
But make sure you also share our podcast and this stuff. If you do enjoy what you're listening to, share it with all your friends on your social media so we can get more people listening to very interesting, fun people like we've had in the past, in the future, and now the present.
Yeah, or you could just give us a bunch of stars. You don't really need to make a comment. Just give us your stars. I don't need your misspelled comments under my podcast.
Oh, look at you, Mr. Elitist. The
I'm
one
just talking shit. I don't care.
Oh, this is going to be interesting
Yeah, it's
because
gonna be a bad one.
we are at the lovely Union Club where we have been all day. Got ourselves a couple of brewskis. Brewskis, who says that anymore?
You.
I just
The
said
guy
that.
drinking water.
Yeah, the guy drinking. I had a Diet Coke. This is gonna go bad. But yeah, we got some Puget Sound pizza, had some ciders, had some beers. So now you're pretty deep into it, aren't you?
Yeah, man. These porters, I don't forget what they're called.
The coconut porter.
Yeah, they're pretty
Porter?
good, man. These Black Raven, Coca Jones coconut porters, they're pretty good.
Yeah,
It's
and they're
my
local.
new thing. Yeah,
Yeah, where'd you get those at?
I don't know. Store.
The store.
Yeah.
There's a store.
Bremerton.
Oh,
Redmond.
Redmond is
I
not
read
Bremerton.
that. I read that wrong.
That was really wrong. You're terrible. So
I'm
if you
taking one of those home with me.
nice, yeah, absolutely.
That's the last one. You can have it. Though.
You're taking it home for me, right?
They can fight
Right.
for it. Rochambeau for it.
All right. Enough about the beer.
All right, yes. And if you want to support this amazing podcast and help us out, buy new equipment and go and do some fun things, patreon.com/gritcitypodcast. Right now, it is the only place where you can get a t-shirt or hoodie with that wonderful Shroom Brothers logo.
Stickers too, bitches.
Stickers, yes, from diecutstickers.com. EJ
Yeah.
O'Donnell and all of those wonderful people over there making sticker dreams come true. I don't know if people have sticker. Did we have sticker
Yeah,
dreams?
people definitely have sticker dreams.
Okay. All right. Cool. That sounds pretty good. So yeah, Patreon.com, $4 a month, all the way up to the business class, which will get us to talk about your business and all those specific intricacies therein.
Ooh, nice. I like
Yeah.
that.
Did that actually flow? All
Yeah.
right. Cool. I feel pretty good about that. Let's get to our guests today, because we do, like I said, we have the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, BFRO.net. We have Nathan and Kirk. How are you guys doing? Because first off, you came down from... Do we call it camping? You were in the woods. You were camping. Were you squatch hunting at this point, or were you just camping, having fun?
It's camping with a purpose.
Nice. I love that.
We're out there most of the time just camping, but we're aware of our surroundings, so we know what's happening. And one time out of 100, we'll have what we actually want to happen.
Nice. I love this. And so you guys have been spending a couple days up in the woods. Where did you guys end up go camping at?
We were in an area near Hump Tulips. That's all I can tell you.
All right, perfect.
No Tellum Creek. I like that. It's my favorite place, man. I love it.
Or there, if you go on the north side of the Olympics, there's a place called Not a Creek.
Not a creek. And I would hope they don't have a creek.
One road over is It's a Creek.
It's true. It's true.
No, I
No,
believe
one-
it.
yeah.
I absolutely believe it,
can-
because they got some weird names for stuff around here.
You can Google it.
And so tell us a little bit about what the Bigfoot Field Research Organization is about, because at this point, I mean, it's in the title. You guys are hunting for Bigfoot.
Dude, this was on my list of things to people to interview. Just so you guys know, this was on I guess bucket list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always wanted to have Bigfoot people on, and you guys to me are like the epitome of Bigfoot researchers. So
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
very kind.
yeah. Well, it's coming from me, so it doesn't count for much. But you're welcome.
I should have worn nicer clothing at this point.
Bow tie.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the history of the organization, what your purpose is, and what you set out to do.
A fellow named Matt Moneymaker started the organization back in '95, I think.
Yeah, 1995.
And it's throughout North America, and there a whole bunch of volunteers who are interested in the subject, and we employ various research techniques trying to document this incredible species that we believe is out there. That not just believe, but we know. We've had encounters that leave no doubt in our mind.
Nice.
And so the BFRO is a group of volunteers, like I said, and we all coordinate and work together and share information. And we often have expeditions. For instance, this summer, we take people out who are interested in the subject. We take them to our active locations and share it with them.
Oh, fun.
And we can never guarantee that something's going to happen, but we always try to do the best we can to make something happen.
And that makes sense. I mean, especially we've talked about this with Andrew with Tacoma Ghost Tours. It doesn't necessarily just being in an area that may have a certain thing that goes along with it. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen when you're there. And
Right.
you might get the benefit of having that happen, but it's one of those things like, don't expect it, but be happy if something you do have some sort of experience right there.
Yes. That's where we try to hold the expeditions at locations where there's a history of encounters, so we can say, well, over there 3 years ago, this is what happened. And people get excited to know that, wow, they are around here.
And I mean, that's one of those things like the Pacific Northwest has been I guess it's an area that is ripe for a species such as this. And tell me a little bit about the species of the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot.
Well, you limited it to just the Pacific Northwest, and it's not. They're throughout North America.
Yeah, man, you forgot about skunk apes in the South.
Exactly.
Oh, really? So
Boom.
they're essentially the same. They're the same species, just called different whatever
man.
area, location,
Right.
region they're at.
Correct.
Yes.
I do got a question about your locations. Back to where you go. Would you rather go to some place that is more popular or some place that people do not go as often? Like you hear about City Ranch up by Mount Adams. They say they have Bigfoot sightings up there all the time.
Whoa, you're getting
But
pretty
there's a lot
specific,
of
Jeff.
Yeah,
God
well,
damn.
Jeff.
Somebody's been
would- or would-
Googling.
or would you? That's right. Or would
You
or,
said that's right.
or would you like to go to a place that's not so touristy?
Nathan.
Oh, it's me.
I think we all interrupted that question.
I know that, at least personally for me, I like to go to places that are more isolated, that have a report history, but not like, hey, look, I'm camped across the road and there's like Jill and John camping over there with their kids. You know?
Yeah. So a little bit more remote in those sort of terms. I mean, I would just
Yes.
imagine at this point, also looking at something like that, if you get into a popular or a heavily populated area, it's just the law of just wildlife. Like they're not necessarily going to be in that area because humans are there in multitudes.
Depends
That's
on the
true.
time of year.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we should probably let's talk about some of the common things, right? So
Yeah.
you guys, I know you guys kind of track them throughout the year, so you kind of see
Yes.
some different things depending on the season, like movements or activity or whatever during the season. But could we go over some things like why people don't find bones or like why they're not videotaped as much? Well, they are videotaped, but it's always fake.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Like, could we go over some of that stuff?
Oh,
Do you guys mind?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's
go
your
ahead.
first question?
All of them. Go starting from number one. Go.
Okay, well, let's just start off with what is Sasquatch?
Well, Sasquatch is according to the reports, it's some kind of something in the primate family, something like me, you, or something. If you were to put it on a spectrum, you have old world monkeys, new world monkeys, and then you have your great apes, and then we classify in the top end of that as hominids. This is something, at least according to debate, you can say is somewhere between traditional Pongidae, lower class apes, knuckle walking apes, and modern human hominid class. Somewhere in that spectrum, Bigfoot appears to fall. They got thumbs, they got human-shaped feet with some minor morphological differences, limb ratio differences, and skeletal muscle development, let alone size.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's something, in my opinion, based on what I saw and what I've experienced, they are closer to us than say a
Farther
chimp.
away. Okay, yeah. So, and it seems that way just when, even if you just like you're talking about Googling, just Googling the physical appearances and what you would see or what people have experienced, and they do seem to be more human. And I think that's kind of the allure for the layman when they're coming into these. It's be like, well, how is like a humanoid out there beyond like us being able to see them and stuff like Scott was just talking about. It's like, why don't we have the documentation, the bones, that sort of things like that? What do you say to people that say something like that?
That is a remarkably easy question to actually answer.
Really?
because-
Okay.
Yes. So here's the thing. How many dead mountain lions do you hear of showing up on the side of the road?
It's a good point. Not a whole lot.
Okay. How many even dead bears?
Yeah.
And that's a much
Yeah.
more frequent animal. And so now I'm going to throw out some numbers here from the Department of Wildlife for
Okay.
Washington State. There's a lowball number of 3,500 mountain lions in the state of Washington alone, just the state of Washington.
Damn.
And there's millions of black bears all the way from Northern California, Redwoods Coast,
Yeah,
and all the way up to
absolutely, yeah.
BC, Canada. Millions. It's not like there's like 5. That's
Yeah.
why it doesn't happen.
And
Or even thousands, millions. That's like a
Yes,
that's a real
millions,
number, right?
yeah.
millions.
Right.
And I mean, that's a super good point, too, just talking about the mountain lions, because how many people have had interactions with mountain lions? We've literally heard of the one, the poor biker that got eaten by a mountain lion, but that was one interaction in how many years?
Yes.
So it stands to reason. And I mean, that's one of those things, I guess, now that even you're saying that, it makes a lot of sense in terms of there's a lot of woodlands out here that are inaccessible just by regular. You can't just drive your SUV to a spot and get to there where it's going to be because it's just too deep. I mean, there's so many woodlands out there that are literally untouched by humans at this point. So why can't it stand a reason to have stuff out there?
Exactly. There's vast wilderness out there. You go out on the Olympic Peninsula alone, and there's so much area where a human hasn't set foot for many, many years since the last time it was logged over 100 years ago.
Yeah, and I kind of love that little bit on that because it's everyone is you're talking about, oh yeah, we're going to go into space, or we haven't tracked the oceans yet. And there's so many, like, sure, you can take an aircraft over these woods and all of these forests and all of this, but
You're not putting your foot on the ground.
exactly.
there,
You're
right?
not. I mean, yeah, we know where it is, and we know the topographical layout
Contours,
of it.
yeah.
Yeah, but you're not going to be able to see exactly with any sort of buildings or structures or anything like that. They can be hidden very well.
There are
also-
planes that
Also,
are-
the Sasquatches are they're masters of their domain. They are perfectly built to elude us. To their coloration, camouflage, and their extreme strength and speed. And many people say that they use lookouts who are always monitoring.
Okay, yeah,
and
like just
they
like a scout or
notify
whatever
the
would be,
others, and so they're always avoiding us, staying away.
To that reason, do you believe, or is there of their habitat, or has there been signs of anything like that, like underground systems, or cave systems, or would they have a sort of like above ground housing like we would have, anything like those that
Dude,
would
you're
lead towards?
Creeping me out now. Underground Bigfoots with above ground housing. What are you
What?
talking
No, I'm
about?
just
We
wondering-
found this
yeah.
apartment building out in the woods.
Well, yeah, no, it's like exactly though. It's like, is there any sort of like
Spaceships
determination?
that they land in.
Well,
Like,
well,
what
no, no,
exactly?
I want to
So-
add to that question though about them not being seen. Now, do you believe it's all natural, or do you believe there might be something supernatural there where they are not seen?
Are you guys?
No.
You're not a multi-dimensional.
Yeah.
There's
they-
nothing I can
we're
tell you.
science-based reality.
I love that.
Right. Look, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people. You get online. There's a lot of people that are like Sasquatch or
Crazy
magical.
Yeah.
people, to be blunt.
Well,
People who you have active imaginations is what we call.
It's really easy to get out in the dark and psychologically build yourself up to believe that something
Oh shit,
is
yeah.
happening.
Last time I went camping.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
people would say the same thing about you, right? Like, honestly, I mean, I don't know what you've seen or whatever, but people would say the same thing. Like,
Absolutely.
they don't know you from Adam, right? So you saying that you go out and you camp and you see Bigfoot, other people are going to say the
But
same
it doesn't
thing.
happen like that.
Well,
That's-
and I don't know, right? Like, so, I mean, just to discount somebody because, they saw something, right?
well, it's not just that. If you actually look at the caliber of the witness you're speaking with. So this is the thing. We classify our report system when someone turns in a report.
That's what I like about you guys, just so you guys know. I love that you guys do reports and you have actual people that go out and do the investigation. I love that.
Yes,
So.
and we also evaluate the person who's making the claim
Mm-hmm.
specifically. Do they have tendencies toward perhaps?
Meth.
Yeah, there you go. Or some degree of
substance-based psychosis.
or even some other natural mental health issues that need addressing. And this is like a cry for help. We see stuff like that occasionally, but you also just get people who really are genuinely mistaken, and then once
Yeah.
you walk through where it was and what it was, what actual known wildlife behavior is, go, oh well, like this report I just took here about 2 months ago. A lady in the Olympics contacted the BFRO thinking that she had a Sasquatch on her property walk around in the snow, and she sent me photos of the tracks, and she said she was hearing weird blowing sounds like out in the yard.
Okay, yeah.
And so she saw these long melded out tracks, and she was really worried because I guess some friend of hers suggested, oh, there's Sasquatch out there.
Oh yeah, and that's what's going to happen. It's going to build that sort of that
Yes.
panic.
Yep.
And you're like, oh crap, okay, I
Mind
have this
starts
here.
spinning.
Exactly, and then suddenly you don't know what you're seeing, and it literally could be a human out there.
Yeah.
And then
That's the first thing I would go to if my friend came to me. He's like, dude, I got tracks. Dude, it's fucking Sasquatch. Done. Done deal, Sasquatch, bro. I don't know.
so what did it end up being?
So this is the thing. After looking at the snow and evaluating the tracks, you could tell that the tracks were double placement. So an animal stepping in line with itself. And what it was a
wow, yeah.
horse. A horse had gotten loose and trotted
no.
and stepped in its own tracks, creating this long inline step. And then all of a sudden, the sound makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense.
It's not like an 8 going. Like
That's, I mean, and it's, I love the fact that you do take this at a science base, because you're not looking you're not looking at a result and trying to fit the evidence into that result.
confirmation bias.
Yeah, the confirmation bias, which we'll be talking about that kind of in the future with some other people that are way, way interesting. But it's that sort of thing where you're looking at it in the terms of, we want to see these results, but we don't want to dictate the results before they've happened.
Yes.
And I love that.
We make a determined effort to be our own skeptics. It's like, okay, what are all the alternate explanations first? And we have to eliminate all of those.
Yeah.
Okay, now we can consider Sasquatch.
Kirk, how did you get involved with the BFRO?
I grew up being interested in it. I guess Leonard Nimoy, I'm a little older, so
Yeah,
Leonard
yeah.
Nimoy had In Search Of. And,
Oh, yeah.
And one of the episodes was on the Sasquatch, and I remember seeing that as a kid, like, wow, that's really cool. I grew up in South Dakota where there aren't any Sasquatch, well, maybe some in the Black Hills, I guess. And so I ended up moving out here, and I was working with this fellow. We had an employee party, and he said something, and I joked, like a Sasquatch, huh? And he goes, no, don't make fun of that shit. That stuff's real.
Oh,
and he's
wow,
always the
yeah.
life of the party, you know,
And he got
laughing,
super
making jokes.
serious.
And all of a
Stone
sudden,
cold,
you brought up
stone-faced.
Sasquatch, and he was
Yeah.
like, don't make fun of that. And then he told me about a sighting later, and it was out there by North Bend. He was driving a dozer to a logging site, and he saw 2 Sasquatches on the road.
Male
one
and a
with
female.
a female shape, one
Wow.
with a male shape. And the female went out in the woods, but the male stayed, kind of like to protect it.
Yeah.
And then he was going like this, back and
Swaying.
Swaying
forth
back
on the
and
road
forth,
as my
okay,
friend
yeah.
was slowly driving his truck closer and closer. And then
See, I wouldn't be driving any closer.
well, he was trying to understand what it was. He's like,
Yeah,
are these
yeah.
NBA basketball players wearing wetsuits? That's what he said. He said
Ghillie
his brain
suits.
was trying to make sense of it. And then the thing, without jumping, without taking a running start, I mean, it jumped from a standstill position 25 feet over a 6 feet bramble of blackberry bushes and was gone into the
Like
woods.
hurdling the ditch.
Jeez.
And he's no human can do that. And
Yeah,
so-
right?
So he told me about that, and I was like, yeah, I've always been interested, and I believe him. He's as trustworthy as anybody I'm ever going to meet, and I got to get into this. And so I
Yeah.
got into the BFRO, reading about their expeditions and reading some of the reports. And I'm signing up for an expedition next year. That was 2009, and I haven't looked back.
Nice. So 10 years into it. I
Yep.
love that. Nathan, how did you get started with the BFRO?
That it's very kind of a similar story.
All right.
Neighbors for years would tell us that, oh yeah, there's these things out there, and I'm like, yeah, those things are called too much drinking, too much this, too much that. Perhaps.
Yeah, that happens
Yeah,
in Washington,
right?
yeah. Especially
Well,
camping. Or
this was in Michigan.
Oh,
but-
okay.
So
well, I mean,
that was a
that's-
thing there long before it was
Yeah,
ever a
yeah.
thing here. So
Good point. Good call.
I mean, yeah, people back where I'm from ride their lawnmowers in their to the gas station to get.
As
To
they
get
should.
beer.
How are
get
you going to fill up?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
See, here we got the electric scooters now.
The
that
funny
you can
part,
go.
and they're like, the funny part is they got like a bottle of vodka in their lap, and they're like, "Oh, the gas tank's getting low," and then they're just driving along even further.
So this was in Michigan,
Yeah.
and they were. Was it stories to scare you, or was it just we've seen these, or we know that they're out there, sort of things?
My grandmother said that she was talking with the neighbors years back, like back in the 70s. Yeah, 70s. The 70s. But yeah, and she told me stories about the neighbors saying, I just saw a giant man in my yard, and he's all in black, and his head comes up to the eave of the house.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
and
more
so,
than just a
So
man,
they
yeah.
called the police, and they're like, yeah, this person has been coming back around my yard like every night, and this was in like June.
mm-hmm.
And this was back in the 70s. My grandma told me the story. So I brought it up to my neighbors, and my neighbors had heard about these kind of stories going on as well. And then one of them, on the guy that lived up the hill from us, has like 8 apple trees that are right next to a power line route that run all the way to this, the Muskegon, a small branch of the Muskegon River.
Okay. Okay.
And so they said one night they came outside after hearing a ruckus of the dogs freaking out, and there was this thing just standing and loading up its arms with apples
okay. Yeah.
right in the yard. And I'm like, you're crazy. You've been drinking too much. And so I went for several years making fun of them. And then my mother kind of confessed that she had an experience when she was 14 in, I believe it was October of sometime in the 70s. I'm trying to remember what the date was. Anyways, she brought it to my attention. She's like, no, I saw one of these things.
Ooh.
I saw one of these things. And I'm like, Mom,
You too? Come on, really?
Bigfoot's not a real
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
Bigfoot's a story made up by tribes to, keep children from running off in the woods and getting lost,
Yeah,
type of thing.
Will work for me.
Right? And so I'm like, Mom, you were a crazy teenager. I'm currently one now at the time. So, I mean, like, I understand.
Yeah.
But I didn't believe in any of it. And then when I just turned, I think it was either 14 or 15, but it was 2009.
Mm-hmm.
I was out hiking the backside of my property because I was scouting on our property to see if I could deer hunt the backside, because we've got a lot of acreage and it butts up against our neighbors and my grandmother's place. We were that family that everybody lived in the same place.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Classic Midwest. But yeah, so anyways, I'm walking around the backside of our property following this ATV trail, and I come around a bend, I come back another bend, and I see this figure off in the distance, and I assume it's the property owner adjacent to the other road from us in like a cut-off block of country, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's the backside of the same power line route that runs all the way past the apple orchard.
Okay, yeah.
And
so
the
it's along that same path. Yeah.
And so I'm coming in on it, and I'm like, oh, there's my neighbor in the woods, and it's like all this white poplar and aspen. So it's like a white tree. It's not quite as white as birch, but it's the first stuff that comes up after they clear cut.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking at it, and I'm just keep on walking, and I get around the bend, and then I stop, and I'm like, he's kind of a tall guy, kind of a big guy, because our neighbor guy's like all of 5 foot.
Oh, so definitely not.
He's like
tall, yeah.
5'6" and 5 foot wide type of guy, and then you just see this thing
Not that, yeah.
swimming through this stuff. And so I paused, and then I'm like, it's got to be maybe his son or something, a neighbor. Maybe someone's allowed to hunt this year on the land. So I went out and walked the ATV trail right up, and I got about 150 feet, and I noticed something really weird. There's just whoever this guy is, he's all in black, including like gloves and a ski mask. And then I'm like, this is kind of sketchy. But then I'm like, this is how people turkey hunt. They black out, and then they go into blackout blind.
So you're able to fill in your brain, like your brain's able to fill in the dots. Like,
to make it a human.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, that's an interesting point too, because I remember hearing stories about how they would do a simulation in a college where they would have someone come in and it would be chasing someone with a gun. They'd say, oh no, that person's with a gun, but it would be literally like something like a banana. And everyone would fill in the blanks. It's like they say it's a gun, it must be a gun. And then because they're just filling in what they believe. And so at that point, you're doing the same exact thing there. You're like, oh, it's just another thing, because your brain is already telling you, because of the stories you heard, you're like, oh, that's not real. That's fake. Those are just too much drinking stories.
I was actually completely opposite of confirmation bias, the opposite other direction.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When I kept walking, I paused at the 150-foot mark, and I'm like, this is kind of weird, but it's got to be somebody. So I keep walking. I get to 120 feet, and I see the arm go out in the brush, because it was wading through this aspen. It's really tight. It's like grows this close together. It gets about that big around, 12 foot tall.
Oh, wow.
The stuff, the trees, the young trees that regrow. And it's wading through it. And finally I see the arm go out to grab some of these trees and bend them out of the way so it can like walk through.
Yeah.
Because it's converging on the trail that I'm on.
Okay, so it's kind of
because I'm facing east, slightly south, and it's facing from the north to toward the south.
So you're almost about to crisscross. At
Yes,
that point.
we're like
this,
and I'm 120 feet, and it's there going that way, and it's 4:30 in the afternoon, so the sun is clipping over me, so I can see whatever it is, great, but it can't see me.
Okay, yeah. So you're just out of view of it, and you're just kind of there, just like.
Watching,
How close am I going to get to this thing?
Well, that's the thing. The whole
and
time,
you still think it's just a person.
It's a dude.
Yeah.
But then it goes. The arm goes out, and where I think Joe's arm should stop and grab the limbs now and bend them out of the way. The arm went out. It's just like, is he holding a ping pong paddle?
There's a little bit of extra room there each time.
A little, yeah, more than a little.
And at that point, even at that, you can tell that it's not like any like extra tools or anything, because it's the
all black,
arm,
all black, and it's the arm and the bulking of the way the muscles are shaped. That's the other thing is like, apparently someone likes to hunt in spandex.
Ooh,
yeah, that's a little weird.
Yeah, that's.
But if I finally saw it do that, and that's when I really this is really strange. And then it moved through, continued waddling its way out toward the path, and then it stepped clean out of the shadows against that white backlit aspen, which is glowing with sunlight on it.
Yeah.
It was July 24th.
Gives you a perfect stage for that. Yeah.
At 4:30 in the afternoon. That was in 2009. It stepped out in the full sun, and then I could see all of it, head to toe. I could see the top of the delt muscles. I could see the tricep separation. It had oil. It was on its face. It was dirty. It had calluses on its kneecaps.
Wow.
You could see wrinkles in its face that wrapped around the corner of the mouth. You could see colored spots on the face where there was like color speckling, grayish and black skin.
Did it look more humanoid or more ape to you?
It looked very, very human-like.
Okay.
If you've seen some of the folks from like Papua New Guinea and Mongolia, where they get those wide, sharpened mouths with really fine lips, and then their nose is really broad and thick looking. It looked like that, but then you had imagine everything else from there up is like a Neanderthal, just sloped back forehead, huge brow. The cheekbones are incredibly highlighted, just extremely framed tight. It looks they could take more than a punch, for sure. In the rear of the jaw, the ascending radii, which is the extension from the hinge point on your jaw that runs down. And that was incredibly deep here. So you can imagine how much jaw pressure power they have, because those muscles actually thread under your cheekbones and around back to the top of your head. So that's why that's why when you chew,
you get that little
can
bit
see
of
that
the
bulge.
temple. Yeah.
On humans, that's the peak. That's where the muscle permanently attaches. There's no extension to that.
Wow.
On these animals, that wraps up about to here, and it's a huge lobe of muscle that wraps through.
So when you see this on the backlit and you see all of it and you're able to process that this is now definitely not a human, what does that do? Does that just break your brain at that point? Because
That's pretty much exactly what happened. Because you got to not only is it, there's people that go, well, how do you know it wasn't a guy in a suit? And I'm like,
there's a certain point when you know.
when you can
just
see
know
striations in the muscles on the forearms, and you can see tendons seizing and holding weight, because it was holding its arm like this, the right arm.
You got to tell him why.
Well, I'll get to that in a second. But and you could see that line. You never see sprinters on the blocks where they got that large line that's cut into their
muscles, and
their
thigh.
muscles and their legs. When this thing was standing there, you could just see everything. Oblique muscles, you could see abdominal muscles, you could see the groin muscles where they saddled over the hips. It was clearly male, incredibly male. You could see the genitalia to a degree, very clearly male.
So why was he gripping his arm and kind of pulling it that way?
Well, he was holding the one arm like this and looking down and looking up across the field. It was doing one or two or both things. It was deciding what the best way to get across that field unseen was.
Yeah.
And because it still had no idea that I was over here, or it was just evaluating that 2-track in front of me to see how recently people had been driving like ATVs on it.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe it was trying to figure out where to put its feet so it wouldn't leave tracks. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
To this day, I don't know.
Crazy.
But it was standing there, and it was holding a dead fawn on its arm like this.
Oh, wow. So it was gripping the whole thing.
Yeah, the head was hanging off like this, and the legs were saddling the arm. And all the meat had been picked off the front half of it all the way up to the shoulders.
Oh, it was just like a to-go order.
Exactly. Carrying a lunchbox.
Yeah.
And the hide had been rolled up like a sleeping bag somehow and was folded up against the top of the shoulder blades and right over the neck.
Wow, it just kind of pulled it apart right there.
Well, yeah. Something. And there's no that when it dropped it eventually after it was turned and saw me. And that's the other thing. It looked big from the side, but the moment that it turned like a bodybuilder, like right at the torso.
Yeah.
It turned and just looked like this right at me.
No, that's a pants shitting moment.
Yeah, no,
Like,
literally, there was fear up to that point, but the moment that its eyes locked on my eyes, I thought I was going to just collapse.
Yeah.
I really just, at that point, I literally remember words going through my head like, you are going to die.
Because at that point, I mean, if you've ever heard any stories, it doesn't. I mean, seriously, I get all of my Bigfoot stuff from like horror movies or those sort of things like that. It doesn't end for the person locking eyes with the wild animal to which you're looking at right there. It's like, okay, now is it going to charge me? Because if it does, I'm fucked.
No, this thing was how do I put it? So you notice how like MMA fighters and UFC fighters are built. They're like this
Yeah.
wired muscle, but it's like really angular. It just like bulbs off of their body versus like a bodybuilder. It's really round muscles and they bulge off.
Yeah.
Versus angular muscle, which is all like fast twitch fiber versus slow twitch.
Yeah. Okay.
So
okay.
yeah. This thing you could tell was so strong that it could have grabbed the bumper of your car and just grabbed it from both ends and
Just take it right
bent
off.
it, take it off and bend it in half.
Oh, Jesus.
The thing could have literally pulled you into pieces.
And you're out in the woods. You're by yourself. And, yeah, sorry. Like, did it now, like, if it came at you, good luck with yourself because you're done. Now, obviously, you're here. So, able to tell this tale. Did he go? Did he run? Did he move? Or, like, how did that, like, work out?
After it turned and addressed me, that's
Yeah.
when, like, I'm like, oh, what? This can't be real. I'm going to get slaughtered. I'm not going to make it back. I remember thinking, I'm not going to make it to the house. I'm not going to make it. And every fiber of my entire body wanted to run, but I wasn't able to. Like I'm standing. This is the thing. Sometimes in fear response, you have fight or flight.
Yeah.
Like where you're like either instinctively you just bolt.
Yeah.
Like when you see the guy jump out in the scream mask in the parking garage, and
Yeah,
you see the girls and they're just like
Gone. Yeah.
and they're gone. And then you see other times where the guy just goes, "What the?" and just like stops and like gets in fight mode. Me, I was kind of like in a sandwich, like right in the middle. Like I couldn't make up my
processing.
You were in deer in the headlights mode. That's what we like to call it.
yeah. And you know what the worst part was is realizing you're in that mode in that second,
and you're there,
and you're locked up. Like literally, I remember I was squeezing my muscles so hard I could feel my body shaking, like to the point where I'm like. You can get freaked out and you get shaky like after a car accident.
Yeah.
Imagine the complete opposite. Imagine that moment where you brace for impact, but it just stays on and you can't turn it off.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't move. You can't leave. You can't aggress toward it. You're just locked. You're like a statue. I remember my heart beating so hard, my eyes would shake every time my heart would beat in just in the back of my head. My ears were swollen up and my neck felt huge.
Yeah, your body was preparing for an impact at that point, I think. Yeah. And it's just
So
like,
what happened?
It's not coming.
Oh well, yeah. So I locked up. So to answer your question, I didn't do much of anything. Just stand there and shake at the knees, pretty much. But it finally went, like it scrunched its face up, and this is how you can they have so much facial dexterity that we don't. Mm-hmm. They like chimps can. Move their lips and articulate all their different proportions of their face in different ways than we can. This thing did that. It scrunched that super wide mouth up into a tiny little bead.
Yeah.
And just with fine, sharpened everything, all the creases and folds in the face collapsed, and the brow furrowed heavily. You could see wrinkles in the forehead. You could see the muscles knot up, and you could see even the neck swell a little bit in the back of the muscles in the neck.
So it wasn't a mask.
No, it wasn't a freaking mask.
Feels like a heavily disappointed look he gave you, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Like he got
nailed
busted.
it.
Like he got busted.
You ever see that angry old man see the young millennial do something stupid in the store, and he's like, "Oh, I do not approve, stupid kid."
And it's like, yeah. So basically, it's like he sees you, and it's like it almost seems like even he's doing that, he's kind of pissed off at himself for getting caught.
You nailed it.
Yeah,
you
and it's
nailed
just
it.
like he's like, shit, and it's like, well. And then, so did he just like move on from that?
Well,
point?
after he shrugged over and looked at, like this is the thing, he looked at me and then he like yanked away. Like I got to disassociate from you, and I got to think, what's my next move?
Okay,
and then it immediately dropped its arm, dropping the fawn on the ground, and then did a U-turn instead of going back the way that it just bashed through the brush.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't have been able to follow, let alone I wouldn't have.
Yeah, right.
It chose to do a slow U-turn where it took 3 to 4 big strides in a big U arcing about 10.5 feet. And then it hit this willow brush, and then when it went into the willow brush, it lifted its arms over the willow brush and then smacked to the top of the willow brush and reached down and grabbed and pulled out chunks and threw it in the air. And threw it behind it and bashed through it like a bulldozer. It was putting on a show.
Yeah,
you follow me, I'm going to tear the shit out of you.
And you're like, okay, yeah, no problem, yo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like it was a demonstration of like, and very calm too. There was no like, I'm throwing a temper tantrum. It's like this could be you.
This is what I am capable of.
Yes.
Do
Right.
not follow.
Yes.
And you see a lot of that, especially we were talking about like with gorillas and stuff in enclosures. You can see a lot of that a lot of the times, or on YouTube videos. I'll watch those.
I
where
love YouTube.
where they're doing those, or they're doing the fronting and stuff like that. So we've witnessed that sort of thing. So you know exactly what it's talking about. I know you weren't going to follow it anyway, but it was making sure you didn't, and that is a definite animal response
Yes.
from that sort of thing. Wow, that is, I love that.
I got a question.
Yeah.
About so you had you saw that one. What do you think about like the Peterson or Patterson
Gimlin
tape?
film.
Do you think that's real, or do you think that's
I think there's a possibility that's real.
What is the Patterson? What are you guys talking about?
Famous
What?
one?
What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
What are you talking about?
Dude, that's like the number one. That's the film you see.
The
old
Bigfoot
from
that
the
you
50s.
see on every single T-shirt doing the.
Oh yeah,
That's
the
it,
one that is
yeah.
literally the Sasquatch Festival like little
Yeah.
logo and all of that stuff. So that's the one. So yeah. So what are your thoughts on that one then?
To be honest with you, it's completely irrelevant to someone like me who saw one at 120 feet. So I don't care. I've never really invested much time into it.
But does that film kind of
Does it represent what a female would look like?
Well, does it
in my mind?
represent kind of what you saw? Is
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, it
Okay.
looks like a 40-year-old female version that maybe is eating more berries than they should.
You have to understand, we think they're a lot like human in terms of various sizes, shapes,
Right.
hair color, and humans
So-
vary greatly.
And so
Absolutely.
it stands to
Right.
reason that this could be a legitimate one, not a person in a costume
Okay.
as stated before.
Then
or
what
any of
about
those.
the guy from Canada, the Sylvania guy?
Oh, Sylvanic? You're talking about
There.
Todd Standing.
Yeah, what about that dude?
That dude
Ooh.
is full of it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, and the only reason I say that is because he has, like, if you watch his videos, there's a obvious progression from the first one, which looks like
Grainy, kind of grainy.
well, it almost looks like a
HD.
puppet with like buttons for eyes.
We call
right?
it the Muppet.
Yeah,
That's
that's,
what we call
exactly
it.
what it looks like. But then the last one he shows, like his devil, you can see his black devil one, looks like a monkey, like a legitimate monkey looking out between two logs, and it's freaky as hell if you look at it on the
Yeah,
video.
yeah.
right?
I mean, and it looks. And I'll give him this: the face of that thing looks.
Which one?
The one that you're
The
talking
last
about.
one, the devil one he calls, or
Oh,
whatever?
not the one that's
or the
like-
first one.
The second one. So there's the original one. He got one where it's like ducking behind a rock.
Yeah, yeah.
He got one where it's like leaping up a canyon, climbing up the canyon. He got another one where it's just the face through these spruce trees.
So
in
I'm just
snow.
talking. Let's just talk about the faces, because his faces are
Yeah, he's got three.
right.
He's got
a few of
the
those.
brown guy who
looks
has
like a Muppet.
black eyes and blinks in slow motion.
Oh no, I'm talking about what's the very first one looks straight out of Star Wars. Like
Yes,
it's
yes.
terrible, right?
And that's a light brownish
Yep.
cinnamon color.
And then he goes to the darker ones that blink their eyes.
Yeah, the dark one looks more framed like the Patterson Gimlin film. The animal is framed to look like that. But
But you think he's full of it?
well, this is the thing. Back when the first footage came out, I sent him a link to the new software that MIT came out with called Bloodflow. And what it is, it's pixel dilation. It's where they go in and they isolate any red or pink or even close to those colors from capillaries that are close to the surface of the skin.
Okay.
And then they crank up, like, imagine the contrast filter.
Yeah.
They dial it up and dilate every pixel width by 2 pixels all the way around any color detected. So that way, every time the heart beats, the whole face flushes red.
It'll flush or whatever.
I said, you could apply that filter. Here you go. Here's the software. Apply it to your faces.
Would it come back with zero? Nothing.
Oh, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah,
I'll do that.
Applied that. Yeah.
I'll do that. I'll do that. Yeah, I'll put it on there. I'll prove that it's a living thing because it'll have a heartbeat and blood pressure. You see the jugular vein. You'll see all this cool stuff. And I was the one that pitched all that. And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. And 3 months later, nothing.
Nothing.
6 months later, nothing.
Todd's about
year
promoting
later?
Todd.
Nothing.
Yeah.
3 years
And that's-
later, and better footage, better faces, full HD, sunlight, close up, nothing.
Oh.
So,
Dude, his legitimately his FX budget is getting better and better like every year.
Well, and that's the thing you're just talking about. He's into promoting himself, and you see a lot of that with anything that might be considered a little bit on the fringe. You'll find the people who, and essentially at this point, it really feels like, and I don't know this guy from anybody, but I've seen it in different other ones where they're there purely to exploit the people who are interested in this. And it is a part of it's money, and then some of it's just because they know that they'll have a captive audience, and they kind of know how to get these people into those sort of it's a snake oil salesman a lot of the times with that sort of thing, and it's unfortunate at that point. Now,
because I think sorry not to interrupt, I think they ruin all video for everybody. So if you came back and you guys were just out camping this weekend, if you showed up here with this fantastic video and you're like, look, well, we just filmed this, and it's some giant primate walking away from you into the forest, right? And we showed it right now on YouTube live. Everybody like, that's bullshit.
Well, right? No. You're incorrect.
You don't think so?
No, absolutely.
Really?
For the very reason I just told you is you could apply this other software.
Oh well, yeah. I guess if
and
you did
demonstrate
something like that,
hey, this is a living thing.
So have you done that with any other videos then?
Oh, I haven't personally applied the filter. I don't really have much vested interest in trying to prove other people's pursuits.
Oh,
that's not my goal.
If we got our own video, we'd definitely do that.
Well, secondly, that only applies to modern light-based cameras.
Okay.
Which would be like, the sun is shining, the sun is on my face, I can hold my finger up and there's a shadow.
Oh, yeah.
Thermal cameras, it doesn't work like that.
Okay.
Thermal cameras are radiometric heat off the body produced. And you don't need light, nothing. You can be pitch black. You could be on the moon. You could be in a black hole.
Yeah, it's like Predator.
Well,
vision.
and I was actually going to ask about thermal cameras.
So yes.
Why have they not? Because you have
Why
drones.
have they not been captured on thermal
because
camera?
you have drones.
They
and
have.
thermal. Oh, how come we haven't seen
He's
them? Why have I
gotten
not
a
seen
video,
them?
one in New Mexico at a distance.
Really?
One was captured on camera in Grays Harbor. It's called the brown footage, and it's very prevalent on YouTube.
Every time I look up brown footage, I get things you don't want to see online.
Okay,
right?
brown Bigfoot footage. Brown Bigfoot footage. Okay?
There's no
Right.
Bigfoot in that one either.
And then you
Well,
can
the
also...
owners of the brown footage, the one Nathan was talking about, they took it down. It's not available right now because
It's
they got
on
tired
Phil's.
of
It's on
every-
Phil's full pollings.
Oh, okay. Phil's breakdown.
Yeah, he has a
Oh,
breakdown.
so Phil's got the what
Special usage.
the brown
rights.
footage, yeah.
There's a fella named Phil
Get the-
Poling who does breakdowns, and
He was given access to...
Okay,
show
okay.
he'll
it.
reveal how things are hoaxes or whatever. But when it comes to that thermal video, he said this is probably the real deal.
The animal is approximately close to 4 feet at the shoulders. It's like 3 foot 9 to 10 inches at the shoulders.
Okay.
Like this.
Wow.
And this is the thing about a thermal image.
Across, yeah.
It's body heat. It's literally the heat of a body. You
Yeah.
can't wear a suit and wear shoulder pads and produce surface skin temperature.
Yeah.
I
So
need
it's a
to see this
living
video.
thing.
You see
I
the
need to
foreign-
see this
yeah,
video.
I know. Yeah, we're gonna find that. If we can find it, we'll post that. We'll share it on our Facebook page.
Yeah, I'll make sure there's a link on the the podcast.
I love
notes.
it.
Yeah.
So do you guys know anybody that is a Bigfoot whisperer that you say every time we go out with this guy, he gets something?
Well, he used to be one, but he's running dry lately.
Back in Michigan, I was very lucky that the animal that I actually saw stayed near our property for about 3 years.
Really?
So we would literally have an interaction basis where I could go out in the yard and go, "Hey, Dad, watch this." Whoop. And then the thing would whoop back from the woods.
Oh.
We could throw rocks out and it'd throw rocks back. Tree stands were pulled down out of the trees. We've had big boulders rolled into the path that people can't move. But
Oh, geez.
half the boulder was in the ground and the other half was in the ground. And you can see where it was rolled from 100 yards away, and half the boulder is covered in dirt where it was in the ground. Stuff like that.
So when you have interactions like that, I mean, does it normalize it at any point?
It did, yeah.
Okay,
like to the
okay.
point where like I went from the first year of being in that situation, being terrified, pull the bunk bed to the other side of the room, have my British 303 loaded against the corner of the door.
Yeah.
Every single night.
That
Can't
sounds
go
about
out and
me.
open the fridge in the kitchen next to the sliding door because
That
I'm
sounds about
freaked
me.
out
Yeah,
that it
yeah.
would break in. Literally, I went through like a PTSD type
Yeah.
reaction. Like I couldn't go out at night to feed the animals. I couldn't do stuff normally. I could not do things normally. I forced myself to go out deer hunting, and it was only because my cousin went out, walked with me past the stand, and when the moment he left, I was like, "Oh crap, I'm alone. I got a gun at least."
Yeah, at least you had that. But I
Yeah.
mean, still, I mean,
But it
what
changed your
you
life
see.
for the better. You
Yeah.
were a
Yeah.
fat teenager playing video games all the time
Yep,
to
that was
become
me.
a physical specimen who was interested in science.
Oh yeah.
I love it.
So did you guys ever run into that? I know there's a lot of stories of Bigfoot being aggressive or mean, hurting people. Do you ever have people
Aggressive, yes.
Yeah.
Hurting people is less common. So this depends on how far back in history you want to go. Many native tribes talk about them as if they're gentle giants. They're totally fine. They don't actually do anything. They just want their space, and you leave them alone, and that's how it goes. Other people say, oh, yeah, they're cannibals. They'll eat your children given half the chance. Like the Zunaqua of British Columbia is the female Sasquatch, is Zunaqua. And then the starts with a B. Buckwus is the male. And they're said that the Zunaqua and the Buckwus will whistle at night to lure your children into the woods and then scoop them up and eat them and take them back. Other stories talk about the stone giants and them being extremely hostile and killing you with stones and stuff like that. Other people say they don't want you to interfere with them. They'll try to run you off, but they won't actually hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just end up being a standoff, and we all know who loses on the end of that.
Yeah, and it just seems almost at that point it would be just a regional or just the historical significance. Any, like you even said with all of these, if they're any different, like the humans are any different in any certain area, these are going to be different in any other area as well.
Yes.
It seems to me on that point.
Also, to just really give a point, that this is a typically unknown thing about Bigfoot. Everyone thinks that the term Bigfoot and that all things Bigfoot popped up in the 1950s. And then it became a thing. That's actually not true. You ever heard of the boogeyman? The boogeyman?
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a Sasquatch story.
Really?
That how it came to be. Yes, it has since evolved into the red-eyed monster. It's green lizard-like under the bed. But the truth was, this is you stay in bed, or the boogeyman will be out your window, or the hairy man is another term for it. Or
okay.
and it'll come out and it'll reach in and it'll get you if you don't go to bed, because it'll see you in the house. And the boogeyman was described well. It was an 8-foot-tall, hairy creature that lived in the swamp and howled at night and had red reflective eyes. That was the boogeyman.
Which kind of sounds familiar.
And then it all left big footprints outside the window. And stuff like that. And so for a long time before the boogeyman story ever became a thing, in the South, the old-timers in the late 1800s called them boogers. Booger. You Google it. What is a booger?
Well, I mean, if you
no,
Google what is
maybe
a
not
booger,
that part.
Dude, you're getting us into some deep places. Dark, what was it? The brown man or something?
Yeah.
I want to talk
Come
about
on,
that.
man.
I want to
And
talk
the
about
Native
the brown
American
man.
tribes, they have all Native American tribes have a story of this kind of a creature.
Yes.
Also.
There's over 37 different tribal names for the anglicized word Sasquatch or Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that, it would be Skookum, Wendigo, Zunaqua, as I mentioned, the Buckwus, Kushtaka. There's one that I don't think the word was ever translated for Otterman. I'm trying to remember what that.
Fucking otters.
We don't talk
dude.
about
Fucking
otters. We don't talk about otters on
We
this
don't bring up
podcast.
otters.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Otters are a real sore subject. So, yeah. Hey.
We'll have to get that story later.
Oh
jumped
yeah,
on
you
that
can.
one,
Yeah,
dude.
you can. Yeah, you can thank Jeff for that one. You can go back and listen to the zoologist one with Susan Ackerman on that one and Otter Chat. Jeff, you wanted to bring up the brown man?
Yeah, so I heard stories where people see a sighting of a Bigfoot and they're approached by people who are dressed like rangers, but they're not rangers. They're kind of more aggressive, kind of like the Men in Black, saying, "Hey, you saw nothing. Let's keep on moving." Have you guys ever heard anything like that?
I mean, we've heard of things where people say, "Don't talk about it because it'll ruin your reputation." Not "Don't talk about it or else."
Yeah,
not that kind of thing.
Okay, not a sort of thing like there's a secret
So-
like Sasquatch Society to
No,
try
no,
to
no,
keep
no.
the information
Like Men in Black, but they're brown because
Yeah.
they're
Oh, my
like
goodness.
rangers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Is that what it is, Jeff?
The Men in Tan.
Men in Tan, yeah.
the tan men. I don't know.
USF, look out.
Not really, but there was a weird story. The thermal footage we were talking about earlier, the brown footage from the Chehalis area.
You guys need a different name for
once
that.
Once that got out onto the internet, it wasn't but a week later that their neighbors told them that overnight, in the middle of the night, a helicopter landed in the field close to them.
Oh yeah,
That had never happened
yeah.
before.
But that's really fringy stuff.
Right. They had 2 Sasquatches, 1 cup right after that.
It doesn't seem to have done a whole lot because the Sasquatches actually still are in that area.
Yes.
Yeah,
they're-
right? I mean,
they're
They
often
return
heard in
every
vocalizing.
March and every October.
So do they
They
have?
move through at certain
Oh,
times.
So
okay.
yeah, you guys were talking about that. So kind of.
Yeah, are they nomadic?
Yeah, can you
Is
talk
that
about
even
that a
the
little
right
bit?
term at that point?
I suppose it is.
Okay.
So this is a thing after.
Migratory.
Oh,
That's
there
it.
you
That's
go.
the word, not necessarily nomadic.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's based on resources completely.
Right.
So both terms, I think, kind of.
No, I like mine better.
Okay, whatever.
Yours
We'll-
sounds cooler.
yeah.
Nomadic sounds just now. Nomadic sounds a little more like
People-ish.
People-ish.
people-ish, but also like almost like.
You could call them nomadic if they're people, but then they're migratory if they're animals.
Oh, okay. So
And that's
I
another
guess that's
question
why
in
they kind of
itself.
both work. Right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So that works out. That. So going back to it. So you've witnessed that sort of thing.
Yes, if you actually distill the data and you isolate all the crazy people, all the mistaken people, you're left with
Come on,
approximately.
you're gonna isolate all the crazies.
Yep.
No,
Well,
For data purposes.
I'm just
Okay.
teasing. Oh, sorry, I'll stop.
It's like
No, you
Facebook.
won't.
It's like Facebook does the same thing.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Okay.
They're trying.
Yeah. So basically, you can take that if you distill it down to that 25 to 30% of the reports that are probably there's something to them.
Mm-hmm.
You take it and you plot it on a map, and you just look at like all of a county.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
All of a sudden,
yeah.
you'll notice that, all the July sightings happen at 3,000 feet and above, and all of the wintertime sightings happen down at about 1,000.
Oh, you
feet.
do
So
it
it's-
by elevation rather than
Exactly.
Than, oh, nice.
By
Then
what?
You do it by elevation rather than like geographical region.
Well,
right?
no, it's you do all of the factors.
Oh,
You-
okay, so they move down.
Yeah, so if
Okay.
they move. So I'll give you an example for like King County, for instance, or Pierce County. What technically are you here?
We're Pierce County. Yeah. Yeah.
Pierce County.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pierce County, you guys deal with the Ording, White River drainages, and like the town of Wilkinson, Enumclaw, those districts, and down from
Yeah. I think those
410.
are-
We don't like to talk about Enumclaw. Some things go down there that nobody likes to bring up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's.
but all the other
I
things.
like Enumclaw. What are you talking
yeah,
about?
that's a nice area.
Okay. Well,
I've got a nice restaurant. called
apparently
The
you guys
Mint
don't
there.
surf
Yeah.
the internet enough.
Yeah. Watch out for the horse brothels, everyone.
Got a lot more things to worry about than Bigfoot and Enumclaw.
So anyway, so you follow all of the research. So you basically you look at all the research, you take all the data, and you can really extrapolate all the information you need straight from that data.
Yes.
That makes sense. I mean,
So then you can figure out
again, the
exactly
scientific
when.
approach. On
Yes,
this.
where to be, when, and why, and what specific things are happening that are creating these effects. Like, for instance, if you have a warm winter, the animals may not, in fact, mirror the pattern they did last year if it was a cold winter.
Mm-hmm.
They may move down, but it just won't be quite as low.
Okay.
And the data kind of shows that. You can look at warm years and go, oh, well, they actually hung on about 200 feet higher, according to these report series.
And then leading to those, you can kind of, I would imagine you can tailor your expeditions and other such with that to be able to do to go to those things.
Yes.
Right.
And this makes sense because looking right on the website, and we haven't brought it up in a little while, but it's just bfro.net. One of the things is like, how do we join? And it says that it's invitation only. But in order to get that invite, you need to be acclimated with with a good amount of the members.
Right. The most common way is you attend an expedition,
And so,
and you get to meet other researchers, and they kind of evaluate you whether you have the skills that we're looking for.
if you take it
we're
seriously,
trying to take you off the crazy
yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And if you're serious about it, basically, you're just if you're serious about it and you really want to learn, you want to really get involved, then you take it to the next step after the expedition. Then you can become an investigator, and a current investigator will kind of sponsor you.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
show you the ropes and introduce you to what we call flats. This is our internal website where all the
All right.
reports come in, and then
Okay.
they all get filtered out. And
But-
because of all the reports that the BFRO gets, only probably less than 10% of them actually ever get published for the public to see in the public database.
yes.
So that's a couple things I want to just throw out.
Yeah.
So number one is everybody should go. If you have any interest in this, you should go to the website and read the reports, because the reports you guys put on your website are fantastic, right? And number two is you don't have to be an investigator to help. Like, you can go to their website and you can buy a T-shirt or sweatshirts. You guys have them for
Correct.
sale.
Yes.
And that will definitely help support them. So do that. Let's find fucking Bigfoot. Tell him Scott sent you.
There's the new show right there.
Find fucking Bigfoot.
Not finding Bigfoot. It's like more serious.
Believe me, we think that all the
serious
time.
about this.
Dude, I imagine it's got to be so. Like for me, like I was telling you earlier before we started, I am deep into all the things weird, right? And so I like all the things, and Bigfoot is the one thing that like I kind of hold dear to me.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I want
yeah,
it to
yeah.
be true so much, but I've never had an experience, right?
Do you go in the woods?
I
That's
grew up
the
in the woods,
point.
but I grew up in
tries to.
Nevada, right? And
Well,
so
then that's not the woods. It's
well,
the plains.
that is, yeah, it's the desert, right? And like you were saying about
That's BLM.
it is BLM. Like you were saying about mountain lions earlier, right? Like I
Yes.
spent my whole youth in the desert out all the time, and I never saw a mountain lion.
But they
I only
live there.
saw they are there, and I've only seen one bobcat ever out of like
That's crazy.
right. You just never run into those things. So I get it, right? And I would love to see one, but I've always thought to myself, what if I saw one, right? Like what if I saw a Bigfoot or even an alien, like whatever,
yeah.
right? Like how like what would it take to tell people, like, you know what I mean? That's
Oh,
a big
yeah,
step to be
yeah.
like, hey, I saw this thing, I want to own it, I want to go out and do this thing, it's got to be real, right? Like that's a huge thing, so it's a big deal to own, right?
The problem is also people are like, well, there's enough people looking for it. Why haven't anyone found it? The truth is because almost everyone half-asses it. They don't really go out and look. They go, oh yeah, I go camping 3 times.
Well,
a
and that's
year,
exactly
9
what I'm
days
talking.
in the woods.
Yeah.
That's not looking.
Yeah.
You got to spend. I spend 160 days a year in the woods at least, and I'd be in there more if we were like sponsored to do it.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
everything,
yeah.
right now, every dollar, I've spent probably 40,000 just in the past few years trying to be out there,
Yeah.
and that's
to
not counting like
experience it.
money lost from time taken off.
Yeah. What brought you from Michigan to this area? Then, at this
Bigfoot.
point? So it was Bigfoot.
The population
Dude,
is
this is the
much-
only place.
No,
Like,
I
this
love
is
this.
the
No, yeah,
place,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
I had research areas in Michigan, 3 different locations where I identified that there were a population living based on track finds I had come across, scat and strange nests we found on the ground a couple different times, and then reports, obviously, and then vocalizations. We did a long-term audio project out there where I designed and built these systems that just sit out on a timer, and they're rigged up to a big 12-volt battery and an ammo can and rigged with microphones. And
Nice,
it's
nice,
like a timer
nice.
system comes on, records 10 hours every night for a month straight.
Kind of how we podcast.
Data, collect. Hey, there you go. And does it work?
Yeah,
There
it
you
does
go.
work. Yeah, right.
And then we take all that data, all the audio recorded, and some people are like, I'm just going to listen on my headphones.
Yeah.
Okay, we're 3 minutes in. No, you can't do that.
Yeah.
When you've got thousands of hours, like I've probably got 700 hours I haven't reviewed yet.
Damn.
And I gotta go. You gotta go look at it. You gotta put it in a spectral view,
Yeah.
a spectrogram,
Yeah.
and look at the hertz ranges and go, oh, there's your owl, there's your person, there's Kirk laughing at something obscene, there's something over here,
Well, and that's the
and then you can go, wait, what is this signature? This doesn't. And this is the other thing. These sounds, some of the sounds we've recorded, they've been submitted to wildlife experts, and they go, huh, it sounds like an orangutan.
it's like, why would there be an orangutan out here?
Yeah, there's not.
That's
or
Well,
other
then what
thing.
made that sound? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we've had people where we've submitted sounds to them to examine, and they went, I don't know what this is. This could be a person, but, and I'm like, well, I can tell you it wasn't a person. We were the only road in, and we were on the road. And
Yeah.
we drove to the end and back in the daytime, and at nighttime we sat there.
Damn.
What sounds like a 800-pound man yelling in the woods far away for 22 seconds?
And 800-pound man yelling in the woods. Well, a man ape thing hybrid. Not even a hybrid at this point. You can't call him a hybrid because
So what are
they're
you,
just
a believer now, Justin?
I am.
Come on now. Come on.
I believe there's something out there, and I'm really interested in out there, and I know that there's an unknown out there. So it's one of those sort of things. Again, you go into the confirmation of like the visual, like, oh, I have seen it, I've experienced it, and so I'm not there yet, but I want to. Like,
do you
I want to do some of this
Do
shit.
you guys do
All right.
do you guys do a trip for drunk tourists? Because we would go. We would totally go.
We've talked about
You
this.
Check
should.
it
Why
out.
not? Let's do
We've
it.
talked about this.
Casual
Yeah,
Sasquatch.
let's do it.
Would you guys would you spend time in the woods?
Yeah, I've done it before.
Not with
I love
Scott.
bonfires.
Yeah, I don't know about Scott.
I love tents.
Yeah,
I love
he
men.
loves bonfires and tents and men. So this is how this is gonna work
How
out.
about walking on a road till 2 a.m. in the pure darkness
Whoa.
next to an old growth forest,
See,
screaming into the night, hoping that a giant ape man comes down?
Yeah,
How about that?
Yeah, you hang out with Andrew from Ghost Tours, yelling at the stuff, man.
I
Because
tapped out at 8 man. That's where I give up. I'm like, nah.
the last time I went camping, we had an outhouse, so it was a
We had
distance.
an outhouse.
Yeah,
I
so
love
it
that
was
you
a
threw
camping.
that in.
But because it was a distance away, but going to the outhouse at 2 a.m. was probably the most terrifying thing in my entire goddamn life.
You're just like, do
'Cause I have a
will you-
flashlight that goes about 3 feet in front of me, and I know beyond that I'm fucked. Like I just know
And-
that there could be anything out there.
And while you're going, you're like waving it everywhere. Like,
Right, I know, and I'm sitting in this little enclosure, and I'm like, well, it could just walk in and kill me.
Well, that's the thing,
Anything
man.
can do this.
When you're in the woods, you don't realize it, but like once you're out in the woods, you realize it. Like, oh shit, like I have no natural weapons. Like I have
Or
no
skills.
Right, like
No,
there's
none.
nothing sharp on my entire body that's gonna kill
So
anything.
to be perfectly honest, yes, I would go with you guys because you have the skills. You've been out there enough, so you know what you guys are talking about. This is the reasons why I would go on like an expedition or something. How long do these normally like what you're proposing? How long do they normally last? How many days do you usually go out there for these sort of
we go
things?
3 weeks. We only bring
no,
1
that's
pound
the
of
thing.
rice.
And we unfortunately live in the real world still.
Yeah,
So we
no,
still
it's-
have to have jobs and obligations. So until somebody comes along and goes, hey, I'll just pay you to full time go out and research and bring back data and show it to me, and we'll make a YouTube show out of it or
Yeah,
something.
we figure out like Travel or History Channel or something with those ones. Or
No,
Discovery.
unfortunately. So get this: we know the cast of Finding Bigfoot. We know all the people that are involved with that very well.
Is it really like a small community where you might know everybody?
Yes.
Yes. Like, I'm just gonna tell you, we legitimately know anyone who has ever said the word Bigfoot pretty much on the internet. Okay.
Yes, we do.
To put it frankly, the Patterson Gimlin film, we've camped with Bob Gimlin and brought him out into the woods with us.
Oh, that's
Oh,
cool.
that is
Many
super
times.
cool. Yeah,
Many times.
That's
Just
awesome.
to be all upfront, I really enjoy the Patterson Gimlin film. I think it's one of my favorite pieces. of
Yeah,
film.
I think it's legit.
So there's something interesting about that footage that that I will argue towards is like the proportion or the membral index, the length of the limb ratios of the animal are beyond human capability. It's not like,
Yeah.
but then this is the part
Yeah.
where one of you guys like arm extensions. Ha, take that. Well, there's 3 major problems.
grabby hands.
Yeah, like the little dollar store.
The trash collectors.
I wouldn't like you said arm extensions was so far out of my fucking wheelhouse. Like I
He's
was
more
like,
willing to accept it.
Yeah, I'm
than
like,
just
yeah,
being
there's a
like,
giant ape in the world, way more than I'd accept someone stuck arm extensions.
But the
into their
listeners.
fucking our listeners are stupid.
Hey, I'm keeping that in. I'm not even editing
Their
it. Emails,
reviews just
email. Yeah. Subject header Scott sucks. Info at
Whatever.
gritcitypodcast.com.
Email me. My email is Jeff. Podcast.com.
So going back to it, how long do you guys really spend out there for this? Because is it a weekend at a time sort of thing?
Well, the
or-
official BFRO expeditions are Thursday to Sunday.
Okay, perfect.
But for us, we're going to be out
We'll
there
be at the
Monday,
days early.
and we tell people who sign up,
Show up early.
you can show up early if you want.
Oh, super awesome! And how often do you do the BFRO expeditions? Are they quarterly or are they monthly?
This year, Nathan and I are organizing 2 in the state of
Yes.
Washington.
Oh, okay, perfect.
In Western Washington. Well, we have the Olympic Peninsula expedition, and then we have an expedition in the Cascades. Olympic Peninsula expedition is in June. The Cascades expedition is in July.
Okay, so good summer months to get that happening and happen. Nice.
And we're doing like one of the expeditions. I can tell you this much: we're doing less than 2 hours and 30 minutes away, 2 hours and 40 minutes away.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Cascades. Oh,
Yeah.
I had those months wrong. Olympic Peninsula is in July. Cascades is in August. I have another expedition in
Oh.
June in New Mexico. That's why.
So yeah, he's doing this out
Oh.
of state thing.
So-
So I'm doing 3 this year.
Wow. Okay. So, what's the difference between, obviously, climate-wise, between New Mexico and Washington? And
Well, the area we go in northern New Mexico in the Jemez Mountains is surprisingly similar to the eastern slope of the Cascades.
Really?
Very similar.
Wow. Okay. It's something I would just. I mean, it's in the Southwest. I just am like, it's not going to be like that at all. I spent a little bit of time in Arizona, and it was a pit. But I mean, I remember going. You go up a couple hours north, and suddenly it's 60 degrees, and you're like,
Yep.
what the shit's happening?
Yeah,
And-
we're high in elevation.
Okay. Okay. So it does have that sort of similar vibe on that.
Yep.
The reports reflect that as well. So
Oh,
the
okay.
temperature's more tolerable up there, and there's more food, so they go up.
And you guys have all the information on the website for the expeditions.
Yeah,
to
go to
contact on those.
bfro.net on the main page that comes up. There's a link for expeditions. Click on that. That'll take you to the whole list of all the expeditions throughout North America this year.
And
You
this
can
is,
also find us on Facebook.
oh yeah,
Nathaniel Bronis and Kirk Brandenburg. If you type in those names with Bigfoot in Google, we pop up the first thing.
And so I imagine you guys are going to keep on doing this and having. I mean, it sounds like you guys are having a blast doing it. But at the
It's
same
a lot
point,
of
you're
fun.
taking it very seriously, which I love. But at the same point, I've seen stuff. I mean, I don't know. Do you guys go to like the Sasquatch Summit at the Quinault? Do you go to these conventions that? Again, going back to the sort of the money grabbing sort of things, it kind of seems like that to me, and I don't want to disparage them in any way, but it seems that it's not necessarily the more scientific approach that you guys are going along with these.
Well, some of the folks who go to those those conferences are legitimate, but many of them aren't. They're like Todd Standing, just trying to sell their own story, their own group. And myself, I don't go to those conferences. I don't find much value in them for myself.
For
I'm
like,
not going to put down anybody who does.
And for like a casual layman on those points, it's kind of like again that gateway, the entryway into those things. If you're interested in this stuff, maybe you do want to take that extra step and go out there and maybe see if you can have an experience
that's
on your
a
own.
great gateway, like you said. Yes,
If
way
nothing else, just to
get familiar
learn
with it.
like what's really going on and like what people do, and that even for the sake of proving to yourself that if you believe that the whole thing's a load of crap, then go out and prove it to yourself and then be able to speak to it.
Yeah.
Use it firmly.
And exactly, and it's like if you believe it's that much, and I mean, even if it's like going out and you say you're going quote unquote camping, or I'm going out, squatching or whatever you want to call it, and then I'm quote unquote camping, and then you're not really doing much more than that. You can get an idea of where you can go if you want to take this a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, on our expeditions, we don't just take you to the woods camping. We have classes that teach you how to read sign for tracking animals, how to cast tracks, how to collect DNA evidence, how to use the technology we use, the audio recorders, the thermal cameras, the night vision cameras.
Oh, nice.
Lifting fingerprints.
Right. Wow. So we present many classes, and so we're teaching about the whole subject and how we approach it scientifically.
I think that's really important. So sorry, but I think that
Yeah, get a little bit closer.
I think
There you
that's
go.
important. So I love what NASA does with like citizen scientists.
Yes.
So they'll put out their like raw data, and they let, I don't know if you know this is
No,
available.
I didn't know this.
So they'll put out raw data, and they let like citizens, whoever, if you're into it, you can go in and color their photos or go through their data and make it. So most of the photos you see online that are false colored or whatever, those are done by just people at home that do it themselves.
Yeah.
So I love that you guys teach people how to collect the evidence themselves in a kind of a scientific way. Like they're citizen scientists, right? Like that's the
And
easiest
that's
way
an
to put it,
increasing movement these days. For instance,
Should
many of the modern ornithology studies on birds are where literally they've reached out and they said, hey, do you like looking for birds? Do you like recording wildlife? Here, buy this unit, put it out, send us your data, and we'll mine it out and look at it.
Yeah, it's that collective thing. You're gonna get, like you said, with the citizen scientist, it's throwing out this gigantic net, and you don't necessarily know what you're going to catch, but you're getting people that have a different aspect on it, a different look on it, a little different viewpoint. They're like, oh, maybe this is a thing. And you're like, well, why is that? And you get their explanation. You're like, oh, I didn't even think of that. And so you get that sort of, it's not being in just a specific hive mind or being in your bubble and only seeing your information. You're getting, again, like I said, a wider net and getting all of that out there. I think that's cool.
Yeah, man, set up those trail cams. We want to see those fucking Bigfoot pictures.
Yeah, we do put out trail cams a little bit.
You should, right?
Yeah, the problem is that they're a low return investment.
Yeah.
They cost between $300 and $400 for good no glow IR trail cameras, and many times they just get stolen.
Yeah.
Even if you hide them.
They don't see that far either.
Yeah, they only see like 40 feet, and then that's it. And so then you spend like $3,000 in trail cameras, and half of them get stolen over the course of 2 years.
Oh, man.
And then also half of them don't work. Like you'll watch an animal walk right in front of it, and you're like, oh, I got a picture of that thing. And then
Nothing.
And other times, a
Modern
freaking bird
technology.
lands on a leaf and then takes off in like half a second, and then it goes off. It's really annoying.
Well, we think that the Sasquatch also have a way to detect the technology that gets placed out into the woods.
He
Don't
does.
know if they can smell it, if they can hear the electronics humming, or if they can see the electromagnetic
And,
field.
and if you don't have these sort of things, also, I mean, we've never had one to be able to do the classic scientific way of finding stuff out about.
We don't
them.
have a Sasquatch.
We don't have one.
Is that what you just said?
Yeah, we don't have one that they've been able to do an autopsy on or anything
Not
like
yet.
that. So we don't know necessarily how they work, how their vision works, and it stands to reason. There's
Right.
plenty of wildlife out there that do not see in the same spectrums
Exactly.
as us.
No, yeah, caribou actually see into the ultraviolet and infrared spectrum to the point where everything has like a purple hue for them.
That's kind of
Well, that's
Um,
weird.
Yeah. So for instance, they could see a full spectrum light miles out, whereas me and you at a distance probably wouldn't really see much.
And there
of
are
anything.
snakes that can see in thermal. In
Yeah,
infrared.
they have infrared heat sensing pits on their face for detecting heat, radiant body heat.
I love this.
That is pretty cool.
I love all of this.
I have a pornographic memory. So
A
Bam.
pornographic memory.
whoa, dude, what
You
are you
said
talking?
pornographic.
Is
You
that
said
what I said?
pornographic
You said
memory.
pornographic.
Yeah,
Sure, is that what you
Yeah.
guys heard?
No,
That's
yeah,
what you
what
guys
she
heard.
said. How
You
many-
do realize it's
No.
recorded, right?
I heard.
Is it? Is this being recorded?
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
fucked up.
All
So I
of
got a
it.
question or kind of answer. So I listened to this I listen to a lot of
shit,
conspiracy
Jeff.
podcasts.
Here we go.
But they're talking about the way that different subject to catch UFOs. The same type of problem. They said if the cameras are all pointed east, all the UFOs show up west.
That's not
So-
how Bigfoot works.
Well,
though.
no, but I'm just saying they're making these cameras that work in like a triangular formation. So if one goes off, everything goes off.
There's
to cover
some
that area in the infrared. And
Oh
the
yeah, figuring
sound
out the
and stuff.
technology and how you can get it to work to your advantage.
Yeah,
at that point.
there are
Yeah.
people that'll be like, I'll put a trail camera here and then I'll put another one pointed right at it. So
Or
if
else
something tries
aim
to
it
get
at
in
a
front,
mirror.
yeah. Now you're getting flaky and weird again. No,
But so I love the fact that you're bringing out the technology and showing how to use the ones that have worked for you, the ones also that have not worked for you. Because when you're bringing people out for these expeditions, you want to make sure that they're prepared with what they have. And you'll again see people trying to make money off of, oh, you need all of this insanely expensive gear. We see a lot of that in the podcasting
Well, yeah,
world.
you have to buy the most expensive gear possible. Otherwise, it's not going to be the best.
Yeah.
well,
whatever you do.
honestly, to tell the truth, the best investment a hunter or anybody can make, even if you're not a Bigfoot enthusiast, if you're just someone listening to this podcast and you're just a hunter or somebody that goes out wildlife watching,
Yeah.
it is still worth it to buy like a FLIR Scout TK. It's not a high resolution thermal, but you can see and you can record at night thermal imagery of animals at anything closer than 500 yards. If you shoot a game animal, you can find it. Oh, there it is, 100 yards down the canyon.
Or you can follow the blood trail.
Yeah,
you can
that
see
too.
It.
Oh wow. Okay.
So at the very least, if for other reasons, you should buy one of these cameras versus I bought 12 crappy trail cameras. What? Like you could have bought a thermal camera.
That is cool, and I mean, can people like I would imagine that you would love to have contact and conversations with people asking questions about that. What's the best way to contact you through it? Would it just be
phone
through the
numbers.
website?
Phone numbers will
Not
be fine.
phone numbers, but maybe like just like Facebook messaging or emailing or anything along those lines.
Yeah, I'm reachable literally just about 24/7. If you have a Bigfoot report that just happened and you call me and I think you're legitimate, you will see me in about an hour.
nice. Call him and he will come. I love
Yeah.
it. It's beautiful.
But you waste my time and I won't. Yeah, and then there's going to be hell to pay.
I'm like a ninja.
I love it. Seriously, guys, thank you so much for being on the
This
podcast.
was awesome. I'm so glad you guys came.
Yeah,
Really, you made
I
my thing.
like I'm glad that you were able to come out from the mountains to come down and hang out and BS with
We
us.
literally did.
I
We
know,
just
I
came in.
love it. It's so great. I'll let you guys get home and get a shower in or something. We've got Bigfoot Field Research, the organization, with us. It's again, the website is bfro.net. Nathan, Kirk, thank you guys so much for being a part of this podcast. And anyone listening out there, seriously, thank you for listening. If you want to get a hold of us, info@gritcitypodcast.com. All the links to our guest are right here on the page. You can just click on it from your smartphone, or if you go to gritcitypodcast.com, all of the links are on this episode. help us by subscribing to our Patreon. Like us on all of our social media. You can find all of that on gritcitypodcast.com. I'm kind of tired and
Yeah,
Scott,
you're doing good,
Yeah.
man. You held it down. Good job.
Yeah,
That was
nice.
a good one.
and you look a little drunk. Are you okay?
Am I? No,
Oh,
I'm
no?
fine.
No?
Okay, a little.
How's
drunk,
that
a little drunk.
pornographic memory?
Did I say that?
You did.
God damn it.
Seriously, guys,
This
thank
was
you
a good
guys
one.
It's
so
empty.
much for listening. And until next time, shoot us your emails, info@gritcitypodcast. We'd love to hear from all of you.